All right, welcome everybody to the HealthSpan Compass podcast. Today's episode is basically an introduction to the HealthSpan Action Coalition, also known as HSAC or HSAC for short. The purpose of this podcast is to give a general overview of what the coalition is about and its implications. So, as we all know, populations across the planet are aging. The paradigm that currently exists is not there to handle what's coming our way. And we believe that this podcast can start not only a national conversation, but a global one to create this new paradigm. And we want to bring everybody along for the ride. And so with me today, I have Bernard Siegel and Melissa King. And so I'm going to start this off with a personal intro. My name is Junaid Mian. Welcome to the show. I'm a pharmacist, an entrepreneur, and currently a biotech investor at 1435 Capital. And I'm going to pass that on to Bernie now.
Well, hello, I'm Bernard Siegel. I am an attorney by profession, but I have moved along in the last 22 years to creating foundations, working on global movements, and being a stem cell advocate, and now a movement relating to HealthSpan.
My name is Melissa King, and I have spent the last 20 plus years focused on supporting regenerative medicine, biomedical research as a patient advocate. And Bernie, the entire time that I've been involved, has been a leader in that field. And so I'm thrilled to be working with him now to build a global coalition around this notion of HealthSpan, which we'll talk more about. Bernie and I worked together to, as part of the team that created and got an initial $3 billion in funding for regenerative medicine research in California at the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine. And Bernie served on the board of the campaign to renew those funds in 2020 that I ran a major chunk of. We got another 5.5 billion. He and I are good at working together to find non-dilutive sources of capital to drive innovation. And it's always exciting to meet someone like Junaid doing similar work to fund innovation, but also an innovator himself. And we come together as supporters of and people working together in this field of HealthSpan.
Thank you, Bernie, and thank you, Melissa. So, Bernie, when you think about aging, what comes to mind?
What do I think about aging? I look in a mirror and I see someone that lived most of his life in the 20th century. So you think about aging all the time. I live in an area of the world, Palm Beach County, which has a demographic of people that we like to say or don't like to say senior citizens and retirees. I'm not retired, that's for sure. So what I think about aging is something that should be graceful, something that should be empowering, something that's important, something that should not be a state of a life that is suffering. And people and human beings start aging from the womb all the way up to what some think are inevitable death, and even some people think they're just going to keep on going forever. Whatever it means is that medicine and science is changing our notions about aging, right? It's changing the notions of health span and lifespan. So what I think about it is opportunity and fundamentally hope.
Excellent. So, Melissa, imagine if you could add another 10 to 20 healthy years to your life. What would you do with that time?
Yeah, and that's such a great question. And it's one that we can more and more think realistically about, both by doing making the lifestyle adjustments that we can to mind our own health span, and also as we look to the science for potential interventions to extend our health spans even further than we can just with lifestyle changes like addressing diet and sleep and moving more. All of these things are so important. But the science is really there at this point, working. We're getting closer and closer to potential interventions to extend our health spans. And what I would like to do is continue being able to work. Maybe at this point, I've worked in politics and been successful, been part of successful teams, getting ballot initiatives passed to the tune of $15 billion in California for research. I've worked on the corporate side. I've worked in government. I have an MBA. Maybe it's time to get that PhD. Maybe I'll be the one to discover an intervention to keep all of you alive for longer. So I'd love to do that. And I'd also love to just continue to enjoy my life. I'm definitely an active person. And so this notion of health span is something when I first started talking to Bernie about working with him on this, when he had the notion that longevity and health span were the next frontier after he and I worked together in regenerative medicine for so long. I love to swim in open water. I love to climb mountains, and I'd love to do that when I'm 110, if I can. Why not? Let's do this.
I love that. I love that vision you have there. I'd have to say a lot of it I agree with, and I'm probably going to do it myself. But you know what? There's always this discrepancy I always hear when it comes to this subject matter, right? So, Bernie, lifespan versus health span. I mean, what's the difference? What's the difference?
Well, in my view, lifespan is the number of years that one lives, chronological. Health span, healthy longevity, is something different, something better, and something that's attainable, which means to however many days we have allotted, they will be in good health and not necessarily in morbid suffering, but something that we can thrive and maybe even rejuvenate, or through technologies like regenerative medicine, regrow our body parts eventually through tissue engineering and cell therapies to be able to have our replacement parts so we can go on and hopefully always learn new things, always bring new things to the table. And at the same time, healthy longevity, health span, represents a potential economic benefit to the world. Don't think about sick care, don't think about assisted living, but being able to live your days independently and in good health. I think it's a goal that is worthy and that should be attained.
So, Melissa, Bernie touched on a lot of things here. So, why does how we age matter just as much as how long we live?
Oh, absolutely. So, as Bernie alluded to, what many people in the longevity field, this growing field that we are all part of, think and say quite often is that we don't have a healthcare system in this country. We have a sick care system, and that may be true in other areas of the world as well. And then in some areas, they don't really have good healthcare at all, which is one of the reasons that we like this to be a global effort. But the reason health span is so important, that notion of living healthier longer, is quality of life. Nobody wants to see themselves as the person ending up in the nursing home in bed all day with an IV, not really having a life beyond that, and not able to socialize and have fun or garden or ski or swim in the open ocean like I like to do. So we've got to find a way for people to live not just longer, but healthy for those longer. If we're going to live 10, 15, 20 years longer than people do on average now, and I know that differs by country, certainly, and we'd like to drive that up all over the world, but we'd like to see everybody in the world living a more fulfilling life rather than having an end of life that is something that, as you see other people around you living that end of life, you think, I don't necessarily want that. So we question whether we would want our longevity to be extended. But if we have health span, and if we start to see the people around us aging but healthily, and enjoying their lives and continuing to be able to do the lifestyle things like move more, which is something we should all be doing, arguably, right? But as people are aging and they're having trouble doing that, that's something that we see as a negative, right? And so if we want a societal movement, which is what we are building, and we have built, if you hear Bernie speak about it, and I agree with that, but if we want it to continue to grow and do its job as a global movement, then we need people to want to live longer. And the reason they will want to live longer is if it looks like a good time.
I would add a little bit to what Melissa has said. When you think about it uh, as a global movement, this isn't going to be something just for tech billionaires, as the cliche, but how about folks, a farmer in Malawi, for example? The health span should be a goal. And I think Melissa and I agree in our organization has as a loftiest goal that health span should be declared a fundamental human right. There are certainly provisos in international law that health is a human right. But how about health span, at least as a goal, because we want this to be universal to all populations and to people of all economic stratas. Of course, there are a lot of things to unpack with that. If you're living in grinding poverty day to day, one day might not look very good to you, or the future might look very good to you. But as a species, this is, and the science that's here now are species altering events and can have change for the better for all of humanity. So it seems to me that it's within reach of science, but we always must be mindful that the things that we're talking about have to be fit into the boundaries of cultures around the world. Cultures that have their own views, their own religions, their own boundaries. And we have to be thoughtful about this. It's just not for one segment of population or one socioeconomic class, but how do these things in a universal way improve the lot of our species?
Well said. Well, look, I want to wrap a little bit of this up so that we have an idea of what we just discussed here. And it's quite deep. And for years, healthcare has focused on treating diseases, with a Band-Aid. But now there's a major shift happening toward dealing with age-related diseases head on, and I believe with more permanent solutions. Now, aging itself is a process that wreaks havoc on quality of life. We all know that. So the more we understand aging, the more we can intervene effectively, which is what you guys are saying. And all of these things that we're doing here are within the context of different societies and places around the world. It's not one size fits all. But the common theme, I believe, is quality of life. And I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
Certainly, you're right. Quality, but quality plus quantity. If life is good, let's celebrate it. My own view of mortality is that it is awfully sad. Woody Allen said, I accept death, but I don't want to be there when it happens. No one is really looking forward to that, right? Maybe some are. It depends, and I respect all points of view. But the point is that we now are in a stage where these future technologies are in the here and now. Future shock, which I read, the book Future Shock by Alvin Toffler, I read in college, and I keep a dog-eared copy on my bookshelf, because in 1971, when that book was published, it was a view into where we are today, all these years later, half a century later, that the technologies and the converging technologies are sweeping ahead in a way that are beyond the scope of even our imaginations. It goes into the realm of science fiction. So how do we manage that? How do we get those technologies for their highest and best use for humanity, to alleviate human suffering? How do we move that forward in multiple societies that are nation states with geopolitical motivations and points of view and competition. At the same time, look at this as a humanitarian effort and a mandate, given what the promise is of this emerging field of HealthSpan. It's a real challenge to try to put something like that together. But in 2.5 years with Melissa and the team that I work with and our co-founder, Sabrina Cohen, a spinal cord injury advocate and stem cell advocate, we formed this coalition to actually try to get this job done.